Hi everyone, today we're talking about percent increase and decrease. Sounds like a new topic, however, just like the lesson before, it's just asking you questions in a different way, but you can use the same methods as you've used before. So in this little cartoon, they're basically showing you a real life example of when we use percent increase and decrease. So here there's a calculation of population increase versus how much water we have available. So if our population increases by 30%, right, because we keep having more and more people and babies, we still use the same amount of resources. So they have to figure out how to um, basically deal with that increased need. So they're talking about building a desalination plant. So that's where you take, let's say, ocean water and you take out the salt, desalination, so that you can come up with fresh water. So they're making calculations on what the percent increase for the daily water needs there would be in order to offset the lack of resources and how many more desalination plants they'll need to build. Important for you to add to your notes is what we mean when we're talking about increase and percent increase. So when we say increase, we're taking the increased value, how much increase it was, and subtracting the original value. So usually increase will look like, kind of like in our previous examples, 125%, right? And then you're subtracting the original value, which is always 100%, to get the total increase of 25%. So you'll have to start getting used to amounts that are greater than 100. And then to calculate percent increase, you're basically taking the amount that it was increased by. So let's say the 25 out of 100, the part out of the whole, and then multiplying by 100%. So it's always going to be the part out of the whole, just like in previous examples, part divided by whole times 100. Same with decrease, except now you are going down in the value. So it could be 100% as your whole, subtracting your decrease percent. Okay, and then it'll make more sense as we go through some problems. So here is example 9 from your book. Susma's monthly salary increased from $3,600 to $3,900. Looks like they got a raise. Find the percent increase in her salary. Go ahead and pause the video. Try one of your methods to solve this problem. Okay, so first off, we want to find the percent increase in her salary. She went from getting paid $3,600 to $3,900. So we actually have to figure out how much extra she's earning. That's a simple subtraction problem. That's the only part that's going to be a little different in these problems. So we're going to subtract her new salary and her old salary. So she's earning $300 more. That's the amount increase. But we want to find the percentage increase. Okay? So just like before, we can use a table. We're going to talk about the increase. And we're going to talk about, let's just say, her original salary. So it increased by $300. That's the dollar amount it increased by. Her original salary was $3,600. I want to make sure I picked the right one, right? Because if I pick the $3,900, that's how much she's getting paid now. Okay, and the reason why I want to make increase and original my labels is because original is 100%. Your original amount is going to be that 100%, which again is your freebie amount. So then we need to figure out the percentage increase. This is going to be a percent amount here. Okay, so percent and percent, dollar and dollar. Increase is going to be up and down on the left-hand side. Original is going to be up and down on the right-hand side. You can have them switched, but they got to be lined up. Okay, and then we found the increase by subtracting the new amount and the old amount that she got paid. which was just a total of $300 more. So now to figure out what the actual percentage is, we can go ahead and look for some patterns. I can look for patterns across, I can look for patterns up and down. It doesn't really matter to me. Let's go up and down then. Okay, so to get from 3,600 to 100, let's go ahead and divide 3,600 by 100. Seems pretty easy. That's 36. So it looks like we can take 3,600 and divide by 36 to get to 100. You can always use your calculator to check. 3,600 divided by 36 should be 100. So then that means that going up and down this way is also divided by 36. So we'll take the 300 and divide by 36. So we get 8.33333%. We can round that to 8.3%. So her percentage increase was 8.3%. We can check that. We'll take that 8.3% and change it into a decimal, so it becomes 0.083 by moving it over 2 decimal places, times our original. And let's see what that is. 0.083 times our original should get us about $300. Yeah, it's a little bit off because we rounded. Okay. I mean, probably more accurate would be the line over it, but really, I don't think it matters that much. All right, so that is the table method. You could use also the fraction method, but you're putting the $300 on top out of the original dollar amount, and you're looking for the percentage. Same thing, you're using the same patterns to kind of get there. It just depends on what you're used to, but you'll get the same amount. If you are using the double number line method, you'll have your percents on the bottom, your dollar amounts on the top. We're going to 100%, but it's a little bit more, right? So we want to find the percent increase. So it's going from 3,600 to 3,900. Okay, and then what you could do here, just like before, is you can actually subtract to see how much it is. It's going to be adding $300. So then you're figuring out how much the percentage is for $300, that increase. Okay, so you're actually not so much interested in this percent right here, but they just want to know how much that increase percentage is. So then you would do the same thing with the patterns to figure out how you got there. Okay, so same stuff as we did before, but now it's just talking about increase. So you might have to do a subtraction in the beginning. Okay, next problem. Example 10. Last week, 8,000 copies of a certain magazine were sold. This week, 7% more copies were sold. How many copies of the magazine were sold this week? Pause and try it on your own first. Okay, so I'm seeing last week versus this week. So that's really telling me that those are my labels. Last week versus this week. This week. Okay, last week 8,000 copies were sold. This week 7% more were sold. 7% more. So last week was 8,000. We don't know how many copies of magazines were sold this week. But if last week, let's just say, because we got to have 100% somewhere, let's say last week was the 100%. So then this week, there's 7% more, so it would be 107%. Notice how I wrote 107% and I didn't write just 7%. Because if we wrote 7%, then we're only figuring out what 7% is out of that 8,000. But they said that this week they earned 7% more compared to last week. So we have to add it to the 100%. Okay? Because if we just found 7%, it would be way less than last week's copies. But in fact, it was 7% more. So just be aware of that. For the previous problem, we subtracted it because we were just interested in how much it increased by, that person's salary increased by. We want to just know how much more they earned. Here, we want to know what the total is after they earned the extra 7% more copies. Okay, so you'll have to, some of these problems will be a little tricky because of that. You want to figure out what exactly they're asking you. Is it how much it increased by or how much it is after it increased? In this case, we want to know how much it is after it increased by 7%. Okay, so same thing as before. Let's figure out what our pattern is. Oh, actually, I want to go in reverse order here because I'm going to go from the percent to the copy sold. So I want to go this way. Good thing I caught that. Looks like you'll have to multiply then to get from 100 to 8,000. Multiply it by 80. Let me just use my calculator to check that. 100 times 80. 100 times 80 to get me to 8,000. Yes. So then 107 times 80 will get me to that copy amount above. 107 times 80. So I got 8,560. 8,560. Okay, so that's how many copies of magazine were sold this week. How much more did they sell? 560 copies, right? Because it looks like that's a difference between that. But they don't want to know how much more. They want to know how much total they sold this week, which is going to be more than the 8,000 last week. Okay, so you could have also set it up as two fractions. You have your 100% on the bottom, 107% on the top. 100% was last week, 8,000. And then this week is what you're trying to figure out. Same thing like before, you're looking for a pattern. So going from 100 to 8,000 is times 80. So going this way is also times 80. Same thing that you're doing to get the 8,560. It just looks different in your setup. Okay, and then we'll do one last problem. Example 12. Mason's weight decreased from 140 pounds to 133 pounds. Find the percent decrease in his weight. They want to know what the percent is that he went down. Go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own first. Okay, so we want to know, let's see how we can label this. Well, we have his original weight, right? We want to have the original. Original went from 140 pounds over to 133, but I'm going to wait for that one. This is 140 pounds. The original is always going to be 100%, so I got all that figured out. And then we want to know the percent decrease. So I'm going to write decrease here as what the other thing I'm tracking. Okay, so if we want to know how much he went down by, so then that means we have to subtract 140 minus 133, which should be just 7 pounds. So he went down 7 pounds. They want to know the percent decrease, what percent he went down by. Okay, so in this problem, you have to subtract. The previous problem you had to add because it was a percent increase. Okay, so 7 pounds he went down by. We'll figure out the percent decrease. So we'll go ahead and figure out the pattern. We're going this way. So what does 140 have to divide by to get to 7? I think it's 20. Let me just check in my calculator. 140 divided by 20 to get to 7. Yes. Another way you could have done it was just 140 divide by 7 to get that 20. I was just doing it in my head, so I needed to just double check because I don't want to go through all this work and have it be off by a digit, right? So then 100% would also have to divide by 20 to get to our missing amount. 100% divided by 20 should be 5. And I can go ahead and check in my calculator if I want to be double confident. 5, yep. So by weighing 7 pounds less, we can say that Mason dropped down by 5% in his weight. Okay. And again, you can also use a double number line for problems like these. Let's see, 0%, 0 pounds. You went from 140 pounds down to 133 pounds. So his original was 100%. You could do the same thing. What's 140 minus 133? And that's 7. So you can figure out 7 pounds. This is on your double number line. You can figure out, okay, well, in order to get from 140 to 7, then that means I am dividing by 20. So 100 has to also divide by 20 to get to the 5%. Okay, so that means this is actually 95%. He weighs 95% of his original. He went down 5% though. So this is the percent they're asking for. And again, the great thing about double number lines is that you can check your work. So this is going up by 7 each time. So then you can kind of build up. Okay, so 10% would be 14 pounds. 15% would be another 7 pounds, so that's 21 pounds, and you just keep going up until you get to 100 to just make sure that those numbers make sense. Okay, but same answer, same method actually.